We work really hard on the pitch. We work really hard on getting our product knowledge right, but we don't talk about negotiations very much. And that's maybe the most important part of every sales process. Let's work on negotiations. We'll do it with Robert Perry next on Purpose Under Pressure. Welcome back. My name's Bryan, and this is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about developing sales and leadership success on purpose and under pressure. And it's brought to you by the professional sales and leadership training team at Sandler by the Ruby Group. You'll find them in Akron and in Columbus, Ohio. They're in Jacksonville, Florida. They're in Capital Region, New York. They do their work on purpose because you and your team are under a lot of pressure. See, they have a process and it stands up to the pressure so that you're not skimping on the details, that you're not giving up or giving in just because things get hard. So you stay on purpose with your organization, and your growth efforts and the opportunities to drive revenue are meant to mean something, even when times are tough. You need that. So reach out to the Sandler by the Ruby Group. See if there's a fit there. I bet there is. Whatever happens, happens. But go ahead and connect with Sandler by the Ruby Group. You can do so online at therubygroup.sandler.com. The Ruby Group, practical sales and leadership coaching for high pressure moments. So let's get cooking. I think the idea for any professional seller is that he wants every sale, every buying opportunity to be a win-win outcome, to negotiate win-win. Good for me, good for you. That's good business. But too often, sometimes what the buyer wants is not best for you. The buyer wants what he or she wants. Negotiations are hard. They can get complex. Unless you know what to expect, unless you know what's coming, it's hard to kind of hold your own under the pressure. So Robert Perry is a trainer and a partner with Sandler by the Ruby Group, and he teaches a workshop for the Ruby Group clients called The Buyer's Dirty Dozen. And that's 12 things that we need to understand about negotiations. I want to talk about that with Robert Perry. Robert, welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
Hey, Bryan.
Really glad that you showed up because negotiations are part of sales. They happen every single day. And yet, we just enter into them and we just start trying to figure it out. I think there's a process. It sounds like you have some ideas about that. I'm interested. Is there one thing in your experience, and you've got a lot of it, is there one thing that always seems to derail a salesperson when they're trying to negotiate and they just lose that right off the bat? Is there any one thing you can point to?
Definitely, Bryan. I think you were correct when you started out saying negotiations or negotiating is all about creating win-win scenarios. Both sides have to win. Because if not,
Always.
then one side will always feel a little jilted. And to that point, feeling jilted, it becomes more of a transactional relationship, and this will not work into a long-term relationship. So specific one things that oftentimes buyers will do really stem around price or decision making. When you look at price, you may hear from that buyer or prospect you're negotiating with, the competition is cheaper. Or from a decision-making aspect, well, I've got authority to have these conversations, but there will be someone else who weighs in on it that may not like your proposal or some of the specifications of your product and or service. So as a countermeasure, we need to have very well-defined answers or take direction to solving or countermeasuring that gambit.
The gambit. It's interesting. So it's something that you're prepared for, and yet we don't always think about it. We walk into a sales meeting and he says or she says, your price is too high. I can go lower. Like, that's not a practiced response, and yet we should be prepared for it. You say a gambit. What do you mean by a gambit?
Gambit, and let me go back historically, the word gambit. It comes from gambetto, an Italian word, and it was used for tripping or trying to gain an advantage against another person. Fast forward to the 16th century, where they use gambetto in the game of chess. What are some things that are sacrificed early on to gain additional advantage? So to today, where you look at the word gambit, what are our buyers doing initially to gain an advantage throughout the negotiation. You reference, I'll be talking about 12 during our sessions, our workshops that we'll be working on, but I'm only going to highlight a few today.
Okay.
That first gambit of, hey, your competition is so much cheaper. How should the salesperson respond, not react, respond to that? Well, first and foremost, our countermeasure has to stem around what is it that the competition, that's probably the incumbent vendor, what is it that the competition can't fix? And if you go thoroughly through a pain step and take it more away from a surface challenge and more to that personal impact of what delaying would be costing that buyer, if we can get to that point, that is the countermeasure we as sales individuals need to use against the prospects or buyers.
So even if I am higher priced, even if I'm not the cheapest option on the block, which I probably don't want to be, there's probably a gambit of my own that I can ask a question and say, so yeah, maybe, but what's really important to you? And instead of just giving up on price, I can kind of shift it a little bit. So instead, you say chess, instead of just putting my pawn where he expects it to go, let's figure something else out so that we can kind of work around it. So that's one. Is that one of the buyer's dirty dozen that you're speaking of in your upcoming sessions?
That's absolutely one of them. Another one might be the buyer or the prospect that says, hey, if you just cut me a little bit of a break right now, I'll send you more work. Well, to me, that sounds awesome. I'll get more work. There's a promise of more work there. But many of us who've been in this business for a long time, and I work with a lot of different verticals, as you know, that promise is never usually fulfilled. So when somebody suggests that to you, a countermeasure we as sales individuals can do, we can tie that promise to volume. We can tie it to maybe a second tier purchase, such that we are not initially racing to the bottom line to create that relationship, to create the sale, ultimately costing us margin and profitability for our companies and for ourselves.
So there's 12 of these gambits, and those are two that when you say them, it's just like, yeah, that comes up every single negotiation process, just like that, almost verbatim, right? We just know that's going to happen. There's 12 of them, and it would be worthy of me or valuable to me to know those 12. Let's talk about those 12. Are those 12 typically present in almost every negotiation? Are there others? Or is this, how did you come up with the 12? Can you give some insight on that?
Well, I highlight 12 that are most common.
Most
At the
common.
Ruby Group, we have the blessings of working with lots of different companies, global nationals, and we've been able to filter through a lot of minutia to come up with these 12. And they're pretty consistent across all verticals. And a lot of it stems around the qualification steps that each and every salesperson really needs to focus on in determining whether or not this is a good negotiated deal. You heard me reference earlier, highlighting and understanding the challenges that are going on, which, why are we having this conversation? Sort of the why. And if we place a lot of energy and effort into understanding that, then and only then will it make the opportunity that much easier to discuss what an investment looks like into your product and or service.
Man, that makes a ton of sense. It's difficult though, but it makes it easier when you know the 12. When you know what to expect, you can practice for that. We had a podcast recently with Lauren Valentine. She talked about debriefing the sales call, and it's very difficult, right? It's very difficult to practice these things, but we're right in front of a customer already. We need to look back and see, okay, when he did that, I could have said this, or when that happened, I could have done this. And so that's one way we can learn. Other ways to learn, Robert, you've got 12. Do I look at those 12 and kind of come up with a game plan, automated response, Or is it something deeper so that I can be a little more flexible? Like what do I need to do with those 12? Can you go there?
Bryan, I'd love to tell you I have a chip in my head that says when person A says this, Robert says that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure all sales individuals love to have that chip. But the reality is, it just doesn't happen that way. And more times than not, in any ongoing negotiation, be it face to face or virtual, this moves very fast. And if the muscle memory isn't there, or you haven't seen the types of gambits I'll talk about in my session, then you're not going to be prepared for it. So, how can you create that muscle memory? Well, sales individuals, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the best ways is through role play. I paused right there only because none of us likes role play.
I was just gonna
Okay.
say that's not what I want to do.
But the reality is, if you think of your favorite actors, actresses, sports stars, sports teams, what they're doing today is they're going through the role play so that they can see every scenario over and over and over again.
Hmm. And it's not fun. It's not easy. Sometimes we think it's embarrassing. I know as a salesperson, I don't want to fail in front of somebody, or I don't want to act, and I don't want to say things that really don't count, but we've got to. And boy, especially when it's just before going into a specific meeting, when you're role playing specific things, not just in general, but you really can help yourself, help the buyer get to a win-win situation. Robert, if things go sideways, if we don't know the 12, or even if we do, and we get a little caught up, we hear the yes, we see the nodding, we start bouncing off the side a little bit, and all of a sudden the buyer gets the upper hand in the negotiation. I missed my opportunity. Happens all the time. What can a salesperson do to kind of equal the playing field a little bit when the negotiation is not going well and he realizes it? What can he do to change it a little bit to reset the chess match, if you will?
Bryan, I'll always suggest revert back to the process you have set for your sales process or for your sales program. If you can go back to what's been instilled through you, through your company, or in the case of working with the Ruby Group, the Sandler system, that can reset a lot of the challenges you're going through. More oftentimes than not, sales individuals want to control the sales process. But ultimately, and you referenced Lauren did a session on debriefing, oftentimes when we debrief, we find out that the buyer, the prospect, is actually running the sales process. So, alone, the one thing that we can always do is look at ourselves to say, where are we in the process? Where am I in the process with the buyer? How do I reset when challenges happen? Where am I missing steps? And sometimes we have to just be honest in front of the buyer or prospect, raise our hands and call a foul on ourselves to say, I might have messed up a step. Allow me to go back. I don't think I got a full understanding as to some of the issues you've laid out before me. Okay. That's where we really have to be vulnerable. And it's really hard for human nature to be vulnerable and say, I might have made a mistake. But of course, as you know, that is us as sales individuals trying to protect their okayness
Yeah.
by falling on the sword, if you will, to suggest that, hey, maybe I might have screwed things up.
What's one thing that you can say when you get started again to say, let's look at this again, because we can't miss that fine point. We can't miss that detail, or we lose the win-win opportunity, right?
Well, Bryan, one of the things that we at Sandler by the Ruby Group stress wholeheartedly, and this is a mindset shift that sales individuals need to go through. The mindset shift is having $1 million attitude. And that $1 million attitude is that you and I have $1 million cash in the bank. And the mindset of having $1 million cash in the bank really lays out the fact that we can walk away from anything that does not serve our interests.
Yeah, we
So
don't need
having
another million, do we? Yep.
don't need another million. In fact, there are so many other companies who need what it is our company has, that I can walk away from this deal. So the whole reset isn't about, hey, how can I fix this? How can I bend over, if you will, to keep the conversations? What did I do wrong? No, it is really a heavy focus on what is our current mindset, in addition to how is it aligned to our pipeline. If I have a pipeline that's flush with opportunities, I can walk away from a deal that does not serve my company and myself.
The person who needs it the most loses, right? We
Yeah.
don't want any losers. And so let's look for good deals. Let's look for good opportunities, but don't let someone play a game on you. Figure out a way to make it work for both of us. See, that's what I love about Sandler by the Ruby Group. I love that idea that we're not going to make every sale. It's okay that we're not going to make it sale. Let's do it right. And when we do it right, we're going to close our share, and it's going to be good for everybody involved. Folks, that's the kind of folks Sandler by the Ruby Group are. That's the kind of guy Robert is. Robert, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how would they find you?
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Robert G. Perry, or reach out to our offices.
Thanks for being on the show, Robert. I appreciate it.
Take care, Brad.
Folks, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here and being a part of this. And I hope that at some point, one of these guys from Sandler, one of these ladies from Sandler are going to catch you and say, yeah, I need that. And when that happens, go ahead and reach out to the Ruby Group. You'll find them at therubygroup.sandler.com, and you'll find all past episodes of this show at bryanmediastrategies.com/podcast and anywhere you stream your favorite shows. It's brought to you by the Ruby Group, practical sales and leadership coaching for high pressure moments. And until next time, no matter how high the pressure gets, stay on